Oh, uno, dos, tres, cuatro. The revolution will put you in the driver's seat. The revolution will not be televised.
Revolution.
The revolution will not be televised. Will not be televised. Not be televised. The revolution will be.
What is going on, everybody? You're listening to another episode of the Visual Revolutionary Podcast. My name is Rick Stovall, and it's my show. And if this is your first time, welcome. Glad to have you. Make sure to check out visualrevolutionary.com for all your information. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Do me a favor, all of you, go to YouTube, hit subscribe there. But if you ever want to see like some accompanying visual elements to this show, they're there. Anyway, today, super stoked to have Keith Malloy return. I'm a big fan of his as a surfer, as a filmmaker, as a person, as far as I know. Seems like he's living a good life. But as a filmmaker, I've really just become a big fan of the storytelling that he's doing. He's had the opportunity to make some short documentaries that really, they pull at the heartstrings. You know what I'm saying? They're great stories on great characters. And then sometimes he's showcasing some of the most renowned athletes in the world, whether it's Kai Lenny and Travis Rice that he was working on The Life of Kai recently, or Emmy Erickson that he did a beautiful new Yeti Presents film called Beyond Sunset. He's out there telling some great stories. But the film I really want to suggest everyone go check out. It's called Can You Hear Me Smiling? It features Scott Belo. We talk about it right in the beginning of the show here. It's just such a great film. I'll put a link to that one in the show notes, but obviously go check them all out. Definitely, if you listen to this show and you're not watching Yeti Presents, like, go watch them. I can't praise Yeti enough for what they're spending on beautiful filmmaking. It's really very inspiring what they're doing over there. Scott Belo is actually a part of that, but his story is a very inspiring story that I recommend you checking out. If you're a creative, which you probably are if you're listening to this show, his story is very inspiring. So, Can You Hear Me Smiling? Links to it are in the show notes. I won't keep rambling on. There's really no need to. Here's my conversation with the one and only Keith Malloy.
Revolution.
Keith Malloy, welcome back to the podcast. Thanks for doing it.
Thanks, Rick. I'm super happy to be here with you and chat.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to talk to you. I told you during that last conversation, Yeti Presents is by far one of my favorite go-to short documentary platforms there is. I'm trying to steer as many people as I can to watch all of their content because it's beautiful. But that was like a reminder for me, oh man, I should get Keith back on because you had a couple films. I know one you directed yourself, Bimarian, had at least two in there, I think. But really, the big one, man, that set me off where I was like, I got to have him back on was the film Can You Hear Me Smiling with Scott Belo. And man, just what a beautiful film. Great job. I didn't know anything about Scott. I'm a big fan now. I can show you Leisure Rodeo on my albums in my phone. I'm a fan. So it worked, you did your job.
Yeah. I mean, that is a pretty unique story with Scott Belo. Should we get into that?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So we've known Scott for years. He's worked with my brother at Farm League years ago. Just a great guy. Fun hog, hilarious to be around him. And basically through working with Scott and through Farm League and my brother Chris, we all became really good friends. And occasionally we would do these rides where we pack into the mountains on horses. Everybody brings a guitar or practices some poetry or whatever it might be. And we get back there and make a big fire and camp out, and everybody plays a little music and sings and whatever, poems and shenanigans, basically. Well, Scott Belo used to come with us all the time, but he couldn't sing or play back then. It was years ago. And he would try a little bit, and the car would get passed to him, and everybody be like, uh-oh, here we go.
Yeah.
And, he would go for it, and it would be a little awkward and kind of hilarious. And he decided one day that he was going to put all his energy into writing songs and learning to play the guitar. And I've never seen anybody in my life fast track it so quickly. Over about a 3-year period, he learned how to play guitar and started writing songs and decided to make an album. And even at that point, I was like, oh gosh, Scott's sending me the album. I hope it's listenable.
Yeah.
Well, he sends me this album, and I had kind of heard some of the songs, and it was just one of those ones where you listen to the song and then it resonates, and we were all just happily blown away with Scott and this, the music he was putting together. He also just has like an incredible knack for production.
Yeah.
So to put another layer on that, Scott has also been in charge of Yeti Films for the last 8 years. Like you said, some of those Yeti films are outstanding, I think. And Scott has a lot to do with that as well. He's just a really creative guy and has amazing taste and all that stuff. So anyways, Scott starts putting out these songs, and just kind of blown away with, like, this was the guy at the campfire 3 years ago that everybody kind of was cringing when the guitar went his way, and he knows. And man, talk about eye on the prize. The guy just found his way and with songwriting, and then also just was able to bring in some of his amazing friends like Todd Hannigan, who does a lot of film scoring for us, and produce these albums. And the proof was in the pudding with the songwriting and the lyrics, and coordinating, these musicians and putting together just amazing sound. And so anyways, someone approached us randomly and said, I want to do a film on Scott Belo. And I was like, perfect, I'm all in. And
yeah.
Scott, Scott as well was like, let's do it. Scott also put a lot of heart and soul into that film. And I would be lying if he didn't put some direction into his own film and help it make it what it is.
Yeah.
And anyways, we had a great time with that. And yeah, part of it, I guess at this stage in the game for me is like, anytime you get a chance to work with good friends and good people, a lot of good usually comes of that. You can feel it when you're working on something and the energy is right. And it often turns out to be a very worthwhile endeavor when you have that good energy with the people you're working with.
Totally agree. And it comes through. I mean, I just think, look, it was filmed beautifully and it's a great story anyway, but when you're emotionally involved in a story anyway,
yes.
With the character, I think you obviously have a real passion for music and for songwriting anyway. And it just all comes through because you can just feel that undertone in a film, just like you can feel the undertone in a song. I think that is what's so beautiful about Scott's songwriting. I mean, to hear that story of like, yeah, he was this guy that everybody cringed a little bit when it was his turn to get the guitar, to not only good songwriting, but like really great songwriting. And I like what you said as far as you were nervous, like when he sent you the album, because even in the film, JT Van Zant's kind of having that same response. He's like, I was kind of ready to be like, yeah, don't quit your day job. And yeah. I had a similar experience as JT was talking to, like as I listened to specifically the second album, the Leisure Rodeo, a few of those songs like really got into my head, and a few of those lines, I was like, man, that's a really, really good line. It was crazy for me. Like, it kind of goes to show like the YouTube algorithm, because really what happened is Leisure Rodeo, just the film that he made to support the album, that popped up into my feed, and I just kind of randomly clicked on it. And then as I'm watching it, I'm like, what am I watching? Like, what is this? Because I was trying to figure out, the soundtrack was really good and Scott's acting was great, and like, I was like, this is interesting, like, but what is it? And then I started kind of doing some research on what, like what it was I was watching. And then your film was right under it in the algorithm. And then I watched your film, and then I was all in on this character. I was like, well, Scott's got a new fan in me. Like I'm taking walks and listening to this album, and I got my wife to watch both of those films, like your film and then his kind of supporting album film. Yeah,
right.
Amazing, dude. Just great job.
Yeah, it's cool to just see somebody like not be impeded and make their vision come to life. It's so easy to talk about it and get bogged down for years trying to get a project done, and to see someone go out there and just have their vision come to life so quickly.
Yeah.
Is that inspiration for all of us. But then one other thing I was going to mention is one of the songs on his first album is called Good Luck Kid.
Yeah.
And that song is actually, my father passed away, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And we're close friends, so we talk about it a lot. And his dad went through a near-death experience as well. And anyways, that song Good Luck Kid was based off my father, who'd passed away, and he got a belt buckle made for my nephew. I forget exactly what it says, but part of it is Good Luck Kid.
Yeah.
And it was for my father had this belt buckle engraved. So when you hear a song like that, and your buddy who you had a hard time sitting around the campfire and listening to, next thing you know, he writes a song that brings you to tears. Pretty powerful,
Yeah, that was a powerful part of the film too, because obviously, you bring it up to your brother Chris, and he's like, I don't, just let's not, and you're like, why not? He's like, because I'm gonna crack, man. Yeah, that was like a beautiful part of the film. And once again, that's kind of all is what I'm talking about. It's like when this like theme comes up on the show all the time of like, shoot what you love and shoot what you're passionate about. And it sounds great because like, of course do that, but sometimes it's hard to make that financially work. But I think if you're, especially as you kind of build a career and like yourself, you start getting more opportunities to make films. You're able to say, I'm very passionate about this story. And it comes through, man. Cause you can make it like someone else could have made that documentary and I'm sure it would have been great because the story is great, but someone as close to the story as you are, you know, like I said, it just comes through beautifully. Yeah.
And as far as filmmaking in general, all the subjects that I work with, I mean, I'm 99% of the time very interested in this person, or maybe even know them slightly or not. But like for me, being a director and working with people, like I usually by this end of the film am like very good friends with this person.
Sure. Yeah.
Part of it for sure is connecting with your subject in a way. I don't know. Like for me, it's like you want to be as comfortable as you can with this person when you're working with them. And by the end of almost every film we work with somebody, I'm like on a really cool friendship level and stay in touch with these people. And for me, that's like such a formula that works so well, and I'm so lucky to be working with these amazing people that have a story or this inspirational aspect to their life. So, that seems to be, like I said, part of the formula that it helps the film be what it can be when you have this like real connection with somebody when you're working with them.
Totally agree. Yeah. Like on that note of what you were just saying, like I just had a conversation with Keith Malloy. I don't know if you know him. He's a National Geographic photographer, filmmaker, great dude. He's been on the show a couple times. And, he was saying even like in his world, like, yes, a lot of things are brought to him and he's commissioned to shoot a lot of things. But even with National Geographic, who he's had a working relationship with for years, he's like, my job really a lot of times is to keep my ear to the ground. And like, when I feel like there's a good story, like recognize a good story. And then maybe I pitch that story and maybe that becomes something. And I think like that's important for people to hear sometimes. It's like, as much as you want the dream project to just be brought to you, a lot of times as creatives, it's like, no. Like you should be on the lookout for the dream project, like create your own dream project. Maybe you get lucky enough to pitch it and for someone to fund it, but you might not get lucky enough. You might just have to, create that dream project over and over again.
For sure. I feel like definitely there's so many great films out there at this stage in the game. I definitely have a little bit of hard time going, this is the one, because there's so much good stuff,
Right.
I feel like my buddies I work with here, Bimarian, Andrew Schoenberg and Brett Williams, they'll be like, this is it. And kind of coax me over the line on doing it, and then it ends up working out great. Like
right.
For me, sometimes like trying to do that project that's kind of next level, it's really hard for me to have the confidence in the story sometimes, just because I want it to be so good. But I think I'm being overly picky because so far so good. I don't feel like we've done a project yet that I haven't been proud of, but I'm always like skeptical. I'm like, is this going to be the one that really is special? So it's that's the thing. I mean, if you can dig your teeth into a story that's amazing and real, and you have characters with a personal interest story that's strong, it's going to be good. But I'm always a little nervous as a director because I don't want to go all out on something that's not worthy. It's a little nerve-wracking sometimes.
Yeah. But I think going to what we were just talking about in Scott Belo's story, that's like such a beautiful metaphor of like, just kind of putting your head down and doing the thing, and like being brave enough to release it. Cause that's what I mean. I just see it all the time. Like I sent your film about Scott to a couple different friends of mine who are musicians, because I watch that struggle so often sometimes, because they're both so talented, and but they both have like that, that constant questioning of like, I don't think this is ready. Let me just work on this like for the next 10 years or something, and you're like, dude, just share it. It's beautiful. I want to listen to it right now. Just put it out there.
Yes. That rings true for me, because I've always written and played guitar, and I really love it, enjoy it. And I play with my buddies, like I said, all the time. And then I'll go and record something and I'll be like, this sucks. So when I talk about Scott's story and how persistent, and like he didn't let a day go by without working on it and figuring it out and making it happen. So that's a good, for all of us, to just see somebody with the dedication and the motivation, and it pays off,
Yeah. Just to do it.
Yes. Why not? Might as well get after and get it done.
Yeah. Well, man, so much of your look, a lot of your life has been that, you took the leap. Obviously it wasn't a huge leap to move from surfing to filmmaking, especially because your brother was already involved with it, but still, it's a leap nonetheless. And it's one of those leaps where you have to be like,
definitely. All
right. Like because a lot of people, I think, fear the reaction of others being like, who's this guy think he is? Like, why don't you just like, I've been working on being a filmmaker my whole life, and you're just going to step into it and start doing it.
Right. Yes. No, I don't know if last time we talked about the first kind of real film I did was a body surf film. And it was like, oh man, there's not that many body surfers out there, especially then, like 10 years ago. It was such a niche thing, but I was like, I don't care. I don't care if it resonates. I know there's a little niche here. Let's do it. And it's super nerve-wracking. And to put all that work, like years of work probably into something, and then be worried about whether it's going to resonate. You really just got to put yourself out there and go for it. And, for me, that body surf film ended up being successful. And I actually I thought, maybe we'll get 30 people to show up at a surf shop and watch this body surfing film, because like body surfing is not that cool.
Right.
It turned into a little monster, and tons of people loved it and came out to see it. And I remember the moment in time when I went and bought a new camera and was like, we're going to do this. And my wife, Lauren, at the time, we didn't have kids yet. And she was like all in on it with me. Like we did it together, definitely. And along with my brothers and all the other great people that kind of was lucky to be around, like the cinematographers that we'd known for years through surfing, a lot of those guys like Scott Sowens and Dave Holmesy jumped in on this project. But I remember the moment when I would just made the decision, like, all right, I'm going to do it. No turning back. And that's something that we all should strive for at some point, to like pull the trigger and go for it, Yeah,
man. Look, we all struggle with it. We all struggle with imposter syndrome. I think most people do. I think you almost have to be a narcissist to not, like question,
absolutely.
like I question the people that are just like, yeah, of course you should see what I have to offer. You're like, well, all right, I don't know about you, but nonetheless, at some point you just have to get out of your own way and, and look, I fail at it all the time, but because doing the podcast, like I just did it, like I didn't have any experience. I kind of figured it all out and I just did it. And I just immediately started releasing them, even though they probably shouldn't have, they weren't ready. And you just think, I don't know, I'll grow as I do it. And because I did it that way, and even because of what I do, as being a photographer and the show, people come to me and they're like, like I've been wanting to do this. And so I have that same attitude now where I'm just like, well, why aren't you already doing it? Like what's stopping you? Just start doing it.
Like, it could spin off. Maybe that experience going for it didn't quite pan out the way you wanted it to, but it could spin off into something really amazing too. I feel like something we all need to do is mentally focus on it and have that vision, and in your mind, see it being successful, and really putting a lot of thought and energy into that vision. And then I feel like you have so much of a better shot of it coming to life. And I'm saying that out loud because that's
you got to tell yourself that. Of course.
Totally. Yeah, because it's hard to have the confidence sometimes. But you, like I said, got to pull the trigger and go for it. And in one way or another, good will come from it, hopefully, Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, yeah. I mean, I'm the same way, like so much of this show is often me saying something that I need to hear. Right. I need to live by this thing I'm saying right now, like I need to do better. But I mean, I do, I think, like you said, sometimes just by putting it out there and creating kind of this mantra of like, this is what I'm going to do. And it's all helpful. But at some point, the mistake I see the most is people, they do a lot of that. They talk about it a lot. And you're like, hey man, at some point you got to start putting one foot in front of the other and actually doing this thing. You've been telling me about this thing for 3 years, like why haven't you? And I think people they make that mistake of they're waiting for the perfect moment that probably will never come.
Right. It's a tricky thing, because there's things in my life where I've definitely dedicated myself and pulled it off and went for it and it's worked out. And then I have plenty of things in my life that I've had it in my head and wanted to do it and it's not quite happened, So I can relate 100% on both sides of that story.
Of course. Do you think your history in professional surfing kind of set you up for that? I mean, there's so much to chase any kind of professional athleticism, to like devote yourself of like, I'm going to be a pro athlete. Yes. You are only setting yourself up for a certain amount of failures. There'll be plenty of successes, but like that road has to involve failures. And it just seems like it's a great training ground for what you do now. Yeah,
without a doubt, that whole experience of being a surfer and at a young age, striving for that goal of taking it as far as I could was a powerful lesson for me in my entire life. One thing for sure, I realized after going through that, it's like, I was so dedicated and put so much time, effort, and thought into it. And it took a long time. It didn't happen overnight. So it was such a good learning lesson in life on like, man, if you want to get really good at something, you need to do it every day for 10 years, and I mean, you don't have to take everything in your life that way, but like, if you have something that you're that passionate about, it's going to be the sacrifices and the losses and the hardships over a long period of time that will get you to that goal. Very rarely does something just fall into your lap. Accomplishing, a big goal is just going to take you time and effort and persistence. And so for sure, that has been embedded in me through what I've experienced as being a professional surfer back in the day.
Yeah. Well, and I just think like, you get to our age and you see, I guess, the lack of curiosity in so many people as they get older. They really, and I've always believed like it's just their ego getting in the way because they don't want to have that moment of being bad at something. And I listened to you on some other show talking about like that you love kind of picking up different experiences in your life that you have to figure out and that you're bad at and that you need to learn. Obviously filmmaking, I'm sure, has been that for you, but as well as, you participate in a lot of things in life. And I've always been the same way. And I just think, man, I'm like such a believer that that's the ultimate prevention of like truly getting old, is just like keeping the curiosity alive and like wanting to be a beginner at things that keeps you young, I think, forever.
Oh my gosh. When you start something new and the learning curve, you learn so much every day. So there's something so special about that, right?
Yeah.
Like, cause like I still love surfing and I do it as much as I possibly can with running a business and having 3 kids. And I don't get to surf as much as I would like to, but I still completely love surfing. My point is I've done it so much. I'm not getting as many new experiences surfing as I am doing other things.
Right.
So I love getting into stuff that I don't know what the hell I'm doing and learning every day. Like we all love that, right? When you like can feel yourself achieving something and learning. It's I don't know. You got to have those things in our lives to keep us stoked and excited. And, and now at this stage too, I love taking other people surfing and teaching them to surf.
Yeah.
And look on their face when it goes well and then kind of reminiscing about my childhood and how much fun that was for me and how special it was for me in my life. So, if anything now I love teaching surfing too. And at the same time, jumping into something that I don't know what the heck I'm doing and climbing the ladder myself, and I do agree with you 100%. If we can keep doing things like that, keeps you excited, keeps you young, keeps you stoked,
Yeah. Oh, it's one of my biggest frustrations sometimes with, some of my friends that are the same age as me and they just have that, like they've just already checked out on the idea of like progressing where you're like, dude, come on, what are you doing? And they look at me like I'm such a kid still. And I'm like, I'm trying to be, that's the goal, like I'm in no rush to grow up.
Absolutely. Stay a grom as long as you can with whatever you're going for, and new challenges and everything are so meaningful in life,
Yeah. I did want to talk a little bit about the Beyond Sunset film as well, because that was the one you actually directed for Yeti Presents this year, right?
Yeah. I mean, we have 2 more coming out, but that's the one that's released.
That's been released.
Yes.
Yeah, that was great too with Emmy and Roger Erickson, that story. Yeah. It's just another look you have been able to be a part of. And once again, I think especially in that Yeti Presents world, that whole model seems to revolve around like bring me a feel good story on a great character and shoot it well. But I mean, you've had the opportunity to make some amazing films about some amazing characters. It's got to be inspiring to you as well. But
absolutely, that one in particular, Roger Erickson. So my brothers and I moved over to the North Shore right out of high school to kind of cut our teeth in the big wave scene and professional. It's kind of the mecca for professional surfing and big waves. And this legend would show up here and there. Kind of a mysterious guy, Roger Erickson, and, he was a lifeguard at the time and had previously been in the Vietnam War. And he was just big Viking looking dude that just like dominated on the big days and then would just disappear. And so Roger Erickson has always intrigued me and very quiet to himself type of guy. And then sure enough, a little while back, a couple of years ago, we got the that was one of the ones we pitched to Yeti along with Jeff Johnson. So actually that film, I co-directed that film with Jeff Johnson. It was almost, and he brought the idea to the plate And instantly I was like, oh my gosh, this is one of those films. That's when one of those ones comes up where you're like, this is it. I'm like, I think this is an absolutely incredible possibility for a film. And I also love the fact about Emmy is like, she's a big wave surfer, but very underground, you know? And she also kind of skirted the limelight a little bit. And like, you know, women's surfing is a very niche thing as well. So she's kind of an underdog, unknown person. But in my eyes, I was like, I felt there was a lot of deep storyline to this piece, more than just big waves, you know, her life, her father's life. And then, you know, we had no idea when we started the film if Roger was even going to interact with us, because he'd avoided media so much in his life.
Yeah.
Because the story was about his daughter and he was so proud of his daughter, he was very open with us, and I think told us some of his history that he'd never even spoke about before, you know? So that was just like such a special film to work on, and amazing people to work with. And for me, true interest, you know. I feel so lucky to spend time with Roger and Emmy and tell that story, you know?
Yeah. I mean, just such a powerful story. And like you said, you know, I mean, obviously there was turmoil involved. There was a real kind of homecoming involved, and yes. Emmy's kind of DIY, like, I'm going to show up, I'm going to do this on my own. You know, yes. Like, I'm not trying to ride my dad's coattails in this world. I mean, obviously the name carried weight, but it just, you know, like, it had, like I said, it's just one of those stories, you know, that you get, and probably a story that you're familiar with, you know. It's like, it's not, I mean, when I know enough about your story, obviously from doing the show before and from being a fan of yours, and Jeff has been on this show too. And a lot of those same stories in the surf world are that, like, I showed up, I put in my time, you know, I risked getting beat up, you know, like I did all that world of just like, I'm trying to make it. And it's a very hard fought, scrappy existence, and very few people like rise up out of it. So I'm sure it's a story. When you look at what Emmy's done, you're like, oh, I know this story really well myself. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and I think such an important component, because a lot of, like you said, a lot of these stories, Yeti stories, are feel-good stories and amazing athletes or dedicated, maybe it's a hunter or whatever it is. But like, when you have those life challenges and you can overcome those, to me, sometimes that even outshines the sport. Like, you know, because all of us, I think, in this life we're living are going to go through those super rough times. And this is no secret, but when you're making films, if you can have that moment in your film when you overcome these hardships, and you know, you watch that film and you can feel it in your own heart, it's such a inspiring part of filmmaking, and I think it's what sets films apart from others, you know. So often I feel like it's part of finding a great story is finding some hardships that people have had to deal with and overcome in their life that can inspire all of us in our own lives, you know?
Totally agree. Yeah. It's the hero's journey. You know, it's like when you're lucky enough to like truly get the whole kind of arc of like, oh, it's the hero's journey. We can present it. And, you know, obviously, like, you might not set out to always be looking for that, but I'm sure as you kind of learn more about the character of your story, whether it's through the actual interview process, and you start thinking like, oh my God, this is really turning out to be a beautiful story. Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of times you're highlighting some amazing athlete, and those can be inspiring just by what they do in their sport, or, you know, but when you dig into one of those stories like Emmy's, where she, you know, her father left, she raised her sisters, her father had this own turmoil in his life. That's just a dream scenario, especially in their situation when they things in the end were really, I mean, her coming back to surfing reintroduced her to her father, And in the end, they have this kind of amazing relationship. And even working on the film with them together, there was extra almost bonding there.
I'm sure
that in the end I feel good about, because I know when Roger's been able to go to these premieres and see his daughter on the big screen and be with her, it's been kind of a beautiful experience for him in this stage in his life, you know?
Yeah. That brings me like to something I wanted to ask you, because like, I know how it is for me. You know, I've hundreds of episodes into this show now, and I've been fortunate enough to just speak to a ton of people, a lot of people that I look up to creatively on a personal level. And I know, you know, how it's affected me and how it's kind of shifted the way I look at this career, the way I look at life in general. And I would assume through all these documentary films you've made, and, you know, we kind of set up the fact that a lot of times you're looking for these characters that interest you, inspire you. You feel like there's a great story there. And I'm just wondering what you've learned, like through all these films. Like, do you feel like you've learned something on a life well lived or whatever? Like, have these characters brought added value to your own life, like as you kind of unfold their lives?
Yeah, no question. You know, going back a little bit to like, as we get older, you know, sometimes you realize like it's all not just a cakewalk, you know, and we all kind of share these hardships, no matter who you are on the planet Earth, and kind of relating to characters, and also I guess like helps direct me on where I want to go and who I want to spend time with. And in ways we're just lucky. We're working on inspirational stories a lot of the time, and we all need that in our life. And it's always good life lessons learned through the process of making these films and connecting with these people. I remember when in the beginning, when working with Emmy, I mean, she was very skeptical of working with anybody. And, you know, there was like definitely a little bit of a barrier between us, you know. I mean, she had known who I was through surfing, and her dad knew of the Malloy brothers as well. So that was like very helpful, kind of getting a little trust with her. But there was also a little barrier there, you know,
right.
and it took time to get through that. And now I see Emmy, it's like we have this kind of super unique trust and appreciation for each other. And, you know, and like, I feel like Emmy at this point, you know, would be happy to come pick me up at the airport or do anything, you know, like there's a cool relationship that was earned through the process of working on the film with her. So yeah, I'm so lucky to be able to work on these inspirational stories with amazing people. And, you know, there's a little part of it's tough for me too. Sometimes we're shooting, you know, we're working long hours, and I used to be the guy that was out there surfing. And,
sure. Yeah.
That transition from being in front of the camera or even the subject of a film to working on a film about others, I've been incredibly lucky to make the transition. And it's also a little bit of a challenge in ways. I mean, back in the day, I was kind of a fitness fanatic, you know?
Yeah.
And now working on films, that's probably the last thing during the film process that you get to concentrate on is your own health and fitness.
Yeah. Once it's in the edit bay or something, you're like, all right, now I can carve out some gym time. Yeah,
totally. But how lucky to be able to transition into working on films on other people, and so gratifying and good for anybody at the same time to, you know, have a goal that is just not about you and about others. Is kind of for me in my life, I appreciate concentrating and putting a lot of work into something that tells that, you know, beautiful story about someone else, and give folks like that the credit they deserve is really cool.
Yeah. I think, you know, and you tell me if you feel this way. I think what happens, at least for me, you know, as like a dad, and my kids are getting older.
Yeah.
The process of time kind of speeds up so quickly. Once you start having children, you're just like, what is happening? You know, like where did the last, you know, I have a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old. So I'm like, I don't know where that 18 years went really. I mean, I was very present, but I think what also happens is because of that, it causes like some nostalgia to rise up, because you see the passage of time like right in front of you on a daily basis. Yes. And therefore, I feel like the realm that you work in this documentary space with these powerful, sometimes feel good stories, because that's what they do for me. I think the reason I love the film so much is they all point towards like, look, you get one run at this life, like a lot of the message is that like, here it is, like, don't waste it. And so I'm sure like when you're in the midst of it, even though you're working and you're trying to direct and there's a ton of things going on and you got camera movements and audio gear, I'm sure at the same time, like as you're listening to these people talk during the interview process, it's got to be like these constant reminders of probably exactly what you were talking about. Like, oh man, I got to refine the balance in my life to be able to surf more, or to be, whatever it is.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you have to, at least for me, try to work in a way that's healthy. And like a big part of it for me is being around the crew that I really like and work well with. And like, we have a bunch of great guys we hire, and it's like, when it's time to work, it's time to keep a smile on your face, work your ass off, and have a synergy that feels good for everybody. You know what I mean? And that doesn't always happen. And, but that's the goal. So that's like, if you can work in this environment that feels good, it's better for everybody involved in the film in the end as well. And so that's one of my goals at working on a film is to be with that, like, no matter what, we're going to be there for each other. And if someone has to do some grueling thing to get through the day and help everyone out and have a smile on their face at the end and maybe crack a joke, it's like that working environment is super important too. And something that we always strive for so many reasons. Cause if you spend that big chunk of your portion of your life doing this thing, you want to keep your chin up and make it as an enjoyable experience for everybody, and then sometimes you get done with these shoots and you have to just get away from it and relax and get a break from the crew and have those times off for sure. But making the work experience as enjoyable as possible, I think, is something to strive for, definitely. And at least I do here at Bimarian with our crew, and feel lucky to work with great people. And, there's certain folks that don't work out because if they're not going to stay on that kind of stoke level, no matter what, throughout the process, it kind of drags everybody down, So I would say to all those out there that are in this world or trying to make their way, a youngster getting into the industry, it's like, if you can, stay in a good frame of mind and stoked and try to make the whole experience feel better for everybody involved, it goes a long way. That's something to keep in mind, I guess, for any youngster getting into it,
Of course. Oh man. Yeah. And like you said, I mean, if you're like, look, if I'm going to sacrifice this time, obviously you're doing something you love, but nonetheless, like time is time. And, like I'm just such a proponent of like, surround yourself with positive people. I don't have the time or bandwidth anymore for the energy vampires out there where you're like, listen, man, I feel bad for you that this is your attitude, but it can't be close to mine. So.
Exactly. So I feel lucky to, like, at this stage, as we get older, like the people, my kind of best friends are the people I work with, because with kids and family and work, you just don't have that extra time. Yeah. So turning that work environment kind of into camaraderie is huge. Like you can go to battle with these guys and they're going to have your back. And we're also going to laugh and crack jokes when the shit hits the fan and everything goes wrong, and find a way to make the best of it all. Cause that's, if you're deep into it, you spend a huge portion of your life doing it. So it's so nice to be around people where you can you can make the best of it and laugh and work hard and have each other's back, you know?
Yeah, I love it, man. Well, a couple of things before I lose you. I do want to just like at least say Life of Kai, also super cool, man. That dude is such an inspiring athlete. You know, when you talked about sometimes you just showcase like these amazing athletes, that seems to be one of them. You know, I remember seeing a clip of you, I think on Instagram, even when you were filming the Travis Rice segment, because, you know, like I'm in the mountains, like I snowboard a lot. And so when I saw them just like be like, yeah, I'm going to go ride with Travis, you're like, wait, what? You know, like this is wild. My God. Yeah. What a cool piece to work on. Oh my gosh.
So we'll dig into Travis Rice. That was one of the heaviest, scariest shoots I've ever been on. So yeah, we've been working on Life of Kai. We just finished season 3. We're going into season 4 now. But the last episode of season 3, we went to Valdez, Alaska with Travis and Kai. And like in my mind, I'm pretty much I would almost say intermediate novice snowboarder. I didn't grow up doing it that much. I did it here and there. And so we go up to the shoot in Alaska. In my mind, I'm going to direct it, but I'm going to be at base camp and you guys can go in the helicopter and do all that shit. And I'm going to, I can be at base camp, watch the dailies. But no, I got up there and Travis Rice was like, you're going. And I'm like, well, I don't even have a board. He's like, I got a board. I'm like, I don't really have the right gear. He's like, I have all the extra gear. I got the board. You're going up with us on like pretty much every run. And I just puckered up. I couldn't believe it. It scared the shit out of me. But I had one of the most amazing shoots and trips of my life. And I mean, I won't lie. Every day we got down from the mountain and I was just happy to be alive. But pretty amazing experience working with Travis. I mean, talk about a motivated, go-getting son of a bitch. Dude, that guy is eye on the prize, and he also exudes that energy everywhere he goes. It's that camaraderie and team effort and no man left behind type of feel. So it's been amazing to work with him and Kai Lenny. I mean, one of the best big wave surfers in the world, paddling into some of the biggest waves in the world. And the thing I love about Kai is that there's like no ego there really. He's like, like a lot of those big wave guys are so macho and kind of hard to be around, where Kai's the opposite. He's like this giggly, fun kid doing things that no one else on the planet can do. So it's been really amazing working with Kai on Life of Kai and with Red Bull. And yeah, already just in shooting one season with him and Travis Rice, and we had Kelly Slater and Shane Dorian and all these amazing guys be a part of season 3. It's been an awesome experience.
Yeah, it's a really cool series. And like you said, Kai Lenny is Travis I've been aware of for a long time, and Kai a little bit, but I even listened to Kai recently on Rich Roll's podcast. And like you said, just, seems like a really humble guy who has an insane work ethic, just like Travis. But I think that's what I was alluding to, even when I'm talking about, you spend all your time, a lot of these documentaries, you spend your time around, whether it's feel good stories or these like crazy motivational characters, for me, I know like a lot of times, like when I hit stop record on the podcast and I've just had some crazy, inspiring creative on the show, I'm like, I got to get my fucking life together, like, because it's hard not to just be really motivated by those people. So it's gotta rub off on you as well. Oh yeah, no doubt. Being around that type of energy, it's, so inspiring. So, I mean, even with Kai shooting season 3 last year, it was like, watching him work out and surf all these big waves. Like next thing I know, I'm like on a little fitness plan, losing and like, like it does, it definitely influences you in a positive way. And like we were talking about early, that energy of working with these outstanding people, it passes on over to you in ways and is really inspiring. So it's been really great and a pleasure to
to work with these people, and they all seem to have some kind of crazy insight on life in general as well, so that energy is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, when you look at that kind of upper echelon athlete like that, like if you're the top of your field and whatever you do,
yes,
you've probably got an inspiring work ethic, and an inspiring attitude. When you were talking about Travis, like he's this machine of like, let's get this done. And the fact that he didn't want to hear your excuses at all as far as like why you weren't going to be on the mountain. He's like, no, you're definitely coming. We're going to do this, and that's amazing to be around sometimes. I mean,
he literally sent me down the first run of my entire trip with those guys. He sent me down something that was 10 times harder than I've ever done, in my life on a snow. It was a part of his, it was what's his thing called? Natural selection.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I literally did a natural selection run on my first run in Valdez. And when you're around people like that, they push your limits. And it also is interesting to see a lot of, when you get to that level, any level you're out, if you're around other people that are pushing it, it's contagious, and you end up pulling off stuff that you think you couldn't do yourself. So that was kind of like a crazy perk to be able to be up there with those guys, and you notice with them as well, like Kai wanted to go spend time with Travis because he knew push him to the next level. And there's nowhere else you can find that really without being around folks like that to get your mind in the right place and push yourself,
Totally. Yeah. It's exactly what we were talking about as far as your team and, being surrounded by people that make you happy, that you want to like be around, but also like rises all the ships, I just think it's such an important aspect of like, choose wisely on who you're really going to spend all your time with.
Exactly. 100%.
Last question, I'll get you out of here. I did want to just bring up, I saw you post something. You were with Taylor Steele and it looked like you had a new film out. I couldn't find that one. I'm assuming it's not available to watch yet, but you're just doing the premiere thing, but Astronaut in the Ocean, right? Yes. With Shane Ackerman.
Talk about another freak of nature. He's an Australian guy. And he's a bodyboarder.
Mm-hmm.
And he's one of those guys that, he works construction and then saves up his money and goes to the absolute craziest waves in the world and charges, I would almost say, harder than anyone else out there. And his story is kind of interesting because his dad always wanted him to be a stand-up surfer. And I think that energy of his dad pushing it on him, he's kind of like, screw you, I'm doing my own thing. And he became a bodyboarder, but he's become world renowned for being one of the heaviest chargers on the planet in the big wave scene and the big slabs, and Chopu, wherever, biggest waves in the world, ship sterns. So then beyond that, he's like an incredible waterman, spear fisherman, you name it, but definitely, kind of one of those underground heroes, that we got to spend time with and do a really great film. I'm really proud of it. And it's come out great. And we got to premiere that with Taylor Steele a few months ago down in San Diego, and had a blast with that. But great guy. I'm not sure exactly when that film's coming out, but it's coming down the track pretty soon. And I'll be looking forward to getting it out there and having everyone see it. And the other Yeti film we've completed is on a guy named Tom Lowe, also a big wave surfer. Another one of those guys that, this positive energy just exudes from his body. He's an amazing guy. And he's an English surfer from England where there's no real big waves there at all. And he's gone on to be one of the hardest charging big wave surfer. He rides a surfboard, unlike Shane, who's on the bodyboard. But he has a pretty amazing story himself. So that's another one that will be coming out pretty soon, within the next 6 months or something like that. Tom Lowe, the title of his film is Let Me Live.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, and by the way, because I know Bimarian did River Pirates, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that, dude, amazing. I've become such a fan of JT because of Yeti. I was a fan of his dad already.
Right.
But yeah, he just another great character, obviously that it has become kind of this reoccurring character in a lot of Yeti Presents stuff. And yeah, great job on that too, to the Bimarian team.
Thanks so much. That one was interesting real quick because like that was one of those ones. So Lauren Spalding is the female that paddles with him in the race. And that was one of those ones, just as far as filmmaking goes, was totally different. Like they were like, well, we're going to do this race. And we just kind of shoot it here at Bimarian. Andrew Schoenberger and Brett Williams went out and shot the race, just thinking, who knows? Yeti wanted us just to shoot it and see what happens. And it kind of turned into this hilarious, amazing story.
Oh man, it was great.
Yeah. And so that was an instance where there was no high expectations really for the film. And next thing you know, it turns into a full Yeti Presents. And I think one of the most entertaining films we've done.
Oh man, it's like when JT's hallucinating the monkeys or whatever on the side of the river. Yeah, it's incredible.
So yeah, for people who don't know, it's like a 300 and some mile. How long was that race?
Yeah, 260.
260 mile paddle race, nonstop, no sleeping, crazy journey. That JT and Lauren Spalding did together. And it was just one of those instances where you don't know what to expect. And it ends up turning into a really great film that I think everybody was pretty proud of.
Yeah, you should be. Well, dude, I won't waste any more of your time. I really appreciate it. We talked about, guarding our time earlier. And so it really means a lot when you take time out and come on the show. And like I said, man, I'm a big fan of what Bimarian's doing, of what you're doing. And I look forward to seeing the new Yeti Presents one when it drops.
Thanks, Rick. I love chatting with you. And thanks for having interest and giving me a ring.
Thanks again. Appreciate your time. Good luck with everything. There it was. What'd you think? He's a good dude, that Keith Malloy. Anyway, if you hear this or anybody on the Bimarian team hears this, thank you for the time. I appreciate it. And congrats on everything you guys are doing over there. So to all my listeners, go check them out. Give Bimarian a follow. Give Keith a follow. Check out their films. Check out Yeti Presents. And that's that. Oh, yeah. And check me out. Check me out on YouTube. I'm going to say it one more time on the outro. At Visual Revolutionary on YouTube, you can see little video clips of this. I'm posting some even shorter ones on Instagram Reels. I'm trying it all. I'm throwing all the shit at the wall these days, seeing what sticks. Let me know what you think. It means something when I hear from you and you go, I like this. If you don't like it, you can say that too, I guess. That's where I'm going to leave it today. Thank you all for listening, for being fans of this show. I'll be back soon for another episode. Till then, I'm out. Peace.
Revolution.